Hi, everybody. Sarah back again. I know I always say I have fun stuff for you, but this time I really, really have something fun. We have Jessie Gender with us tonight. And real quick, I want to say like the video if you like this kind of stuff and subscribe to the channel to let me and the algorithm both definitely know that. And if you really want to support me and the channel, I have a Patreon now. So the link to that will be in the description and it's on the About page for the channel. Let's dive right in. Actually, we're going to start at 2 minutes in because he tends to repeat himself.
Basic information around a potential perpetrator of this incident and a lot of allegations. And while, again, I would rather wait until we had more facts, until we have more information, I do think that there is value in having a trans woman such as...
Wait until we have more facts?
myself at least talk about and try to discuss this news as honestly and openly as is possible
now they
at the moment, so at least there is that voice in this conversation. Now, I'm not the only trans woman that is talking about this, but I do feel like because I have used my platform to talk about the Wi Spa incident before in a video that
we're just going to speed him up a little bit, actually, and he's about to explain to us why he feels the need to chime in here.
I do feel like I feel like at least an impetus to at least add my voice to this ongoing conversation, because again, I am worried about how this information has been championed and used by anti-transgender groups, and two, I do think that there's a lot of nuance to discuss given the situation as it stands right now. So let's get into it and kind of discuss this really briefly. Now, for those of you who may not remember the specifics of the Wi Spa incident, basically what happened was there is a spa in Koreatown, Los Angeles named Wi Spa that is trans-inclusive in their policy. They allow men, women, non-binary folks to attend the spa. The spa is a spa where people get naked and can get in pools and do sort of general you're naked there. However, the incident basically occurred when a woman who went by the name of Cubana Angel online released a video that went viral where she went up to the front desk of the spa claiming that a man had, or at least someone she said was a man.
We all know what happened, right? We all remember this. Let's scrub a little bit.
Alt-right and things like that, who kind of took it as part of this larger narrative that is going on, anti-transgender group exposing himself to her. Now, this video went viral and basically got a lot of pickup by anti-transgender groups like TERFs, the alt-right, and things like that, who...
So, you know, we're in the same group as the alt-right again. But, again, he completely misunderstands what we're saying.
Kind of took it as part of this larger narrative that is going on around trans people right now, that trans people are just women pretending to be men to get into women's spaces, to indecently expose themselves to assault and attack cisgender women, and that's basically what trans people are.
And there are people who argue that, but really the main thing is that such a thing is possible.
They use that narrative in sort of larger culture to basically try to push for banning transgender women and transgender men and non-binary folks, but mainly targeted at transgender women, to try to ban...
Like, how do you even ban a non-binary person from a sex space? Do they just not get to use any of them? Because they claim not to have one. I love how they include them, but like no one really knows how that works.
Transgender women from using the bathroom that we identify with, so that trans women would be forced to use the men's bathroom. This incident, because it was about a supposed man,
the bathroom that they identify with. That's right. That was good, right? So you identify as a bathroom
to a women's space and indecently exposing himself seemed to fit perfectly with that narrative, and as such, many TERF groups decided to pick it up and try to propagate it online. This then led to protesters of the Wi Spa coming to the spa, including TERF groups and even Proud Boys and other alt-right activists coming to the spa to protest the spa, then leading trans-supportive protesters to come...
The Proud Boys are not a TERF, I'm sorry, a feminist group in any way. They're not connected to us in any way. I certainly don't know any of them myself. Jeez Louise, what is that? And I don't know of any feminist groups that were there. But there were right-wing groups there, and apparently we're just the same.
The spa and basically leading to violence between protesters in the streets. Now, reporting of the incident was somewhat skeptical of the fact of if there was even a trans person at the spa that day, if there was even a person who was indecently...
Somewhat skeptical? I mean, it took him like maybe a week, maybe two, but I don't think, about maybe a week, to just start flat out calling the Cubana Angel woman a liar and saying that the whole thing was probably a hoax and there were no other witnesses, which we now know is not true. And they were ready to write this off.
Exposing themselves. There were some people that sort of hypothesized that the event was all a hoax put on by anti-transgender groups to try to, further this narrative of trans people being men trying to sneak into women's spaces to assault them. And so that sort of became the galvanizing point around this issue at the moment. However, the news that has since come out as of September 2nd, Thursday of this week, it appears that the Los Angeles, I'm just going to be reading from the article right here so I make sure that I get the facts correct as they stand at the moment that I'm currently filming this video. It appears that the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office has filed charges of indecent exposure against a transgender woman who appeared nude in the women's area of the spa in the city of Los Angeles. By the way, I am going to be citing the Advocate article, the Advocate being an LGBTQ magazine that I used to work for. So,
oh, he used to work for them. That's great. I mean, okay, fine, whatever. But like, props, I guess, for not, true Scotsmaning this one, and being like, well, no real trans woman would be, in a spa with their dick out because that would give them such dysphoria, which I have heard argued. No, he is going ahead and accepting that this was indeed someone who identifies as a trans woman. So props for that.
Just being full exposure here, but this was also reported on by several other outlets. But the article that I'll be linking below and citing is from The Advocate. So basically, as I just said, there have been charges filed by the Los Angeles District Attorney against a transgender woman who is allegedly, potentially, the person who had decently exposed herself in the Wi Spa and was the center of the incident of that viral video. However, there's also further information about this person. First and foremost, this...
I like how he says, however, when really he should be saying additionally.
Person whose name is Darren McGregor, who is 52 years old. They have been charged with 5 felonies of indecent exposure in the past, according to the Los Angeles Times. And she is also a registered sex offender due to...
Wow, right? Convictions. Okay, so that's not alleged. We don't have to beat about the bush on that one at all. That is in the record, right? Plural. So this is not a misunderstanding. This is a habit.
Convictions from indecent exposure in 2002 and 2009. And
that was almost 10 years ago.
He is currently facing charges of further indecent exposure charges from a 2019 incident. Now, before we dive further into this information, again, I want to make it very, very clear that these are charges filed. These are not a conviction in a court of law. So this is all alleged at the moment, and we don't...
No, it's not. We just saw that. There are things from as long as almost... Wait. 2002. What year is it? That's 20 years ago. I'm losing track. Yeah. We have convictions from almost 20 years ago. And more recently. Those are facts.
Don't know for sure exactly what happened, and there's not a lot of specifics or facts about why these charges were filed, what information the police have at the moment.
Because he exposed himself to a little girl. There is not really any dispute about that. Except, as we will see from the person himself, who apparently it doesn't count as exposing himself because he was in the water.
So there's not a lot of specifics, but basically what we know is these charges were filed and this person has a history of indecent exposure. So there is a lot to download with that information. If this person, if Darren, went into the Wi Spa...
A lot to download, but no facts. Right? Sure. So... there's a lot of specifics here. Like, this is full of details, right? I mean, heck, if we wanted to, we could look at police reports and charging documents and their previous convictions, which I'm sure are public record. Let's watch him squirm for a second.
With the intention, and did indecently expose herself to women. Regardless of what genitals she may have, penis, vagina, whatever. If that's what she did...
Actually, quick point of order. Is it possible to, like, indecently expose a vagina? Like, it's internal? What?
She should face charges, she should be arrested, and she should face a conviction. Again, we don't know if that's what happened, but if that is what happened, that is what should happen in this case. That is something, by the way, that trans and cis women would both agree on. As a trans woman myself, I do not want anyone, regardless of who they are, regardless of whether they are trans, whether they are cis, whether they are a woman, whether they are a man, regardless, I do not want someone to be going into any sort of public space or restroom or anything like that and indecently exposing themselves. That is a crime, and it is illegal. And that, if this person did that, they should be convicted.
Yeah. But, like, it used to be a crime for him to just be in there, and we could have avoided the whole sexual assault situation to begin with. And that is the point.
The fact that this person has a prior history of indecent exposure does not speak well to the possibilities here, but again, we don't know the facts of this case. But if that is what happened, they should be convicted. And that is something that I think pretty much all of us can agree upon, trans or not. And so I want to make that explicitly clear here. However, This is what concerns me. The fact that this was a trans woman who was being charged with indecent exposure has led to groups already, right now, I've seen many TERF groups, I've seen many conservative news outlets, I've seen many alt-right groups online start to take this and use it as proof positive of their narrative.
Oh my gosh. I just can't, I can't get over being lumped with the alt-right. And like in the little post I made yesterday on the blog, I came up with a silver lining for this wrinkle. But, oh, it just grinds my gears so bad. Boy, this guy.
That all trans people are this. That all trans women are men pretending to be women to get into women's spaces to indecent.
Well, I mean, the first part is a given. Okay. But as far as all trans people being, flashers or sex offenders, no, that's not the point. The point is that you cannot tell the difference until the action happens, and then it's too late.
They expose themselves because one person potentially, possibly, maybe, allegedly did this. It has become proof positive. It has galvanized these groups, justifying their own beliefs again.
It's become proof that it was possible. Yes, it justifies our fear that this would happen.
Against the transgender community, that transgender people should be banned from using the bathrooms that align with their gender identity because they might be men sneaking into women's spaces to indecently expose themselves. This is not true.
No, they are men. And regardless of why they want to be in there, they should not be in there. Because if the men's room is too dangerous, we should address that.
Trans women are women, and all we wish to do when we are in public, when we go to the bathroom, is pee. We have also every right.
Well, it was recently pointed out to me that actually women do a whole lot more than pee in the restroom. So this whole we just need to pee thing is really kind of butch, if you ask me.
To use the bathroom that aligns with our gender identity.
No, you don't.
We have every right to use the bathroom that aligns with who we are.
No,
Not only because of our identification, but also for our own protection just as much as...
Again, I already addressed the men's room thing, but you don't have the right to violate women's boundaries, and you don't have the right to insist that we play along with your little game of dress up here.
Say cis women's protection. Look at me. I know there will be some people who watch this video and be like, oh, you look like a man, and say transphobic things like that, but I have been harassed for being a woman, for looking like a woman, for appearing feminine.
Again, I'm really tired of that word, feminine, because defining it turned out to be really, surprisingly difficult. But, I appreciate your consistency of your color scheme you've got going there. Your eyeshadow almost matches the lighting behind you. That's more than I've got going on, that's for damn sure, in the makeup department. So, effort, A for effort there. But your fears as a feminine presenting male, a helicopter. It's wild. Even out here on the edge of nowhere, we got giant motors going by.
Should I be forced to go into the men's bathroom?
Well, no. You can go pee outside against the wall if you really want, or in a bush or something. Standing up. If you really just don't want to go in there, you can do what a lot of women do and just not use the restroom in public at all. But your fears as a feminine presenting male are a different side of the same cultural misogyny that causes you to feel entitled enough to go, oh, well, I know what I'll do. I'll just go in the other door.
Because I'm trans? That puts me at risk of being assaulted,
you're a man.
or, being in danger. And also just being, uncomfortable, unsafe, feeling misgendered, feeling, ostracized from who I am by society. This narrative.
Because you don't get to go in the room with the little girl on the side? Oh, honey.
That trans women are just men trying to sneak into women's spaces to assault them is not a true thing.
No, but the first part is. And, the first part, that trans women are men. Okay. As far as the sneaking in, no. Y'all are obviously not content with sneaking in. You want to be welcomed in with open arms, darling. Which I just don't think that's going to happen.
However, incidents like this one at Wi Spa are now being taken as, and by the way, again, an incident that has not been convicted or proved, by the way, it's just charges, has now been taken by these groups to say, ha ha ha, look, this is what trans women are. And that's what makes me nervous and scared as a trans person.
Yeah, you're nervous because there's no way to tell you from a flasher until it is too late. That's why we're nervous too. Yeah.
Because this happens so many times. One person does something wrong and it becomes indicative of the entire group, of a marginalized group. You know, one trans person does something wrong and then it means all trans people are somehow just that.
Okay, so he started general and now he's specifically talking about trans people, and then he's going to claim that it doesn't generalize to other groups.
And responsible for that. But this is not the case when we talk about any other group of...
Which is obviously garbage, okay? Because every young black man on the news, on the evening news, is all black men, right? Every woman who, you know, acts emotional in public is all women, right? Okay. And this has been a point of critique in various places that I've seen going back ages, that marginalized groups, you know, the individual is made to stand for the whole. And you just contradicted yourself too, so congratulations.
People. Like, for example, if a man assaulted a man in the men's bathroom, would we now say that all men need to be banned from the men's bathroom? No, because one trans man potentially...
No, because that would be absurd. Then it would just be an empty room. But men assault other men all the time. That's a large portion of what violent crime is. It's men attacking other men in various rooms all over the world.
Indecently exposed herself to a woman in a spa does not mean that we need to now bar all trans women from being able to use the bathroom. But that is the narrative that is being pushed forward and being pushed further by this incident. And it's something, again, we see numerous times with many different marginalized groups, not just trans people. And what worries me even further, not that...
But you just said... You see what I mean? Guys and guys. Boy, don't say that 5 times fast. But he is just so unintentionally hilarious.
This will just be used by anti-transgender groups within their own circles, but that this will start to justify further harassment of trans people.
I don't know about justifying harassment, but okay, wait a minute, we're almost
in the bathroom, and start to push a further narrative in the mainstream that this is what transgender people are, because these transgender anti-transgender groups now point to this instance and say, hey, look, this is a proof that this is possible. This is possible.
Ah, right, and that's enough. That's enough. No means no, and no is a complete sentence.
Again, even though this is only alleged at the moment, even if this does become a conviction, which is...
Oh my gosh, with the prevaricating again, because, you know, y'all were perfectly happy to just write this off when it was the word of a black woman. But now that it's the word of some cops, you're all like, oh, well, you know, it's just, you know, you're still trying to find a way to make this okay.
It's not right now, but even if it does not prove anything of the transgender community as a whole, but it will be used as such. And as I stated in my initial video about this incident, transgender people already face harassment for using the bathroom, for being able to...
And, you know, I don't think that anyone needs to be harassed. That's bad. But that's not women's problem. If men are harassing you, take it up with them. Men are the ones who decided that their penis was a weapon. Men's harassment is what made its separate spaces necessary to begin with. Men are adult males who are not welcome for good reason.
To just go and pee. You know, I even shared in my initial video about this incident of a woman live streaming herself going into the bathroom to harass a trans woman. And she faced no charges for filming in a bathroom, by the way, which is against the law. But felt the right to, you know, go and harass a trans woman in the bathroom because they were a trans woman in the women's bathroom.
Yeah, she felt the right to defend her space. I don't know about, you know, facing charges for filming in there. I do know that district attorneys have discretion for what they file and what they don't file and what they pursue. So, I mean, obviously somebody chose not to pursue that.
This is something that happens repeatedly to trans people. We are harassed constantly when using the bathroom. I myself have. Several years ago, when I was early in my transition, at my workplace, when I worked at a Starbucks, we had a bathroom that was part of this whole gymnastics. I know.
Sob story.
But this incident will be used as further proof and start to try to be used in many conservative talking points to further this narrative that trans...
I suppose some people are, you know, just worried about the sex perverts. My thing is that I would rather not have to worry about them.
Gender people's rights need to be taken away, causing transgender people to want to go out to in public less and less and less, pushing us into a closet. And it's scary and frustrating that incidents like this happen.
So I don't know. I think that we should be less tolerant of individuals pushing their issues on everyone. You know, just because you feel unsafe over there doesn't mean that, you know, you get to come over here.
That all being said, I do want to address one other point of nuance in this discussion that needs to, I think, be addressed, even though it is something that, I'll be honest, is a criticism of myself and of people discussing these issues. Because when this viral video came out, there again were some people who called it a hoax. Now, it may still be. For her own part, I should at least include the words of the person who was being charged, Darren Meager. She stated in an interview with the New York Post that, quote, everything about the Wi Spa incident was a bunch of garbage and lies. She never saw me naked. I was underwater with water all the way up to my chest. So,
water is clear that. And from what I had heard, he was, you know, close enough to the little girl in the hot tub to make her uncomfortable. And that she could see, you know, beneath the water. Because it's water.
So it is quite potentially possible that this person did not indecently expose themselves. This is the thing that's their quote on what happened. And that this person...
I mean, anything is possible. But here we are, literally defending a sex offender.
The person who made the viral video, Cubana Angel, she was doing it as a hoax to try to galvanize anti-transgender groups. That is a potential thing that is still possible. Again, this is why...
Hi, Bucky Cat. We have a visitor. Yay. Say hi to the kitty. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can't stick around right now, though. We'll snuggle later. Mama's busy. I'm sorry. Oh. Okay. We're having some fun now.
Well, I'd rather talk about this with all the facts, but it is possible that that is true, that this was a hoax. And we need to make sure we keep...
Okay. How did she pull this off? Did she just know he was going to be there that day? Did she, Cubana Angel, somehow know about this person's previous convictions? To set this up? How?
Keep space for that, because that is very, very possible. It is a tactic that many anti-transgender groups use. They fabricate events or make events or cause big ruckuses of events.
Okay, and I really, like what?
In order to galvanize their movement further, in order to cause the very things that I'm worried about and stated earlier in the video. So that is still something on the table as possible. And I think it is entirely reasonable for trans people to be worried about that fact, about that being potentially the case, because that is something that happens. Many anti-transgender groups, many groups use misinformation, use hoax incidents, create false narratives in order to try to push anti-transgender ideas.
Yeah, you know, questioning authority and questioning what you hear and see and thinking critically is very important. But y'all were not very interested in that a few weeks ago when there was no proof and no witnesses. And it was, you know, y'all's word against a black woman.
Is legislation and things like that. It happens literally all the time. And also, it also is worth noting that the initial video does appear to have many anti-transgender languages and notions within it. I mean, the woman who recorded the video repeatedly says, it was a man, I know a man, it's a man, saying...
Oh my gosh, this about the false narratives. You mean like you being a woman?
It about this person, dehumanizing this alleged person, also saying he's a man, whereas, at least according to the information that we have right now, Darren does identify as a trans woman, and regardless of whatever she did, regardless of if she did indecently expose herself, which is wrong and awful, we do not have the right to take away her gender identity.
Again, just indulging this person. You know, playing at being so unbiased, open to nuance, but indulging this person in his identity is more important than safeguarding women and children from flashers.
to misgender her, regardless of how awful a human being she is. We do not have a right to misgender her. And if that was what the person was doing in the video, which it seems like they were, that can be a red flag for many transgender people and trans allies to be like, oh, this is an anti-transgender person making this video.
Like, all this talk about rights just sounds like a lot of privilege to me. Okay? Because, women don't have the right to protect ourselves, apparently. We don't have the right to use certain words. But this guy, with his, assault convictions, has the right to go wherever the fuck he wants. Sure. That adds up. No.
And that potentially leads it to potentially being a hoax. So you can see why that possibility is still open, why it's still a major concern for many trans people, including myself.
Yeah, it's a concern for you because there is no material distinction between you and that person. Someone might call you out. Harass you for, violating women's boundaries en masse. Because that's not concerning.
And I think it's, like I said, it's still on the table as a potential possibility in this incident, as this trans woman has alleged in their response to...
Did you just misgender the trans woman as they? Oopsie. I don't even know if is that what that was? I don't know.
The New York Post. That all being said, it is also just as equally possible that this wasn't a hoax, that this person, again, allegedly right now.
Okay. Now he's going to go back through that whole thing one more time, and we're going to skip ahead a little bit.
And I think, while I will not say that there is not some failure to listen on the other side of this incident, on the pro-transgender side of this issue, and I think that that's true, it's worth saying that. But the other thing, too, is I also am deeply frustrated that this situation is now going to be taken and utilized as a framework to say that it is trans women versus cis women. That is...
Okay. Believe all women, unless they disagree with you, right? Oh my goodness. You guys made this trans versus cis when you came for our resources, when you started to dictate our language. Sure, you did it to make yourself happy. But don't be shocked when we don't want to be friends. Okay?
Trans women versus, quote, biological women, which is the term that many anti-transgender groups use to frame the discussion. That the battle is between trans and cis women, when that is not the case here, but this incident is going to be utilized to frame the discussion as such, that it's trans versus cis women, as opposed to what it actually is, which is trans and cis women together against a culture that politicizes our bodies, both in overlapping and different ways. As I've stated in this video and in others, transgender bodies are so incredibly politicized. Our very existence in certain spaces are politicized. And yet also at the same time, women in general, cis or trans bodies,
all this talk about bodies sort of gets to semantic satiation after a certain point, and it starts to lose its meaning. But politics is about bodies, Jessie. What they look like, where they live, what they eat, where they learn, whom they marry, etc. These bodies are called people. You can't separate people from their bodies. This is just like projecting your own dissociation onto the world at large. And you can't do that because it's nonsense, What is a person without a body? A ghost?
bodies are politicized, objectified, seen as sex objects, and are weaponized by alt-right conservative anti-transgender groups as well to push their narratives about women's bodies. We see this with other things like the Texas anti-abortion law right now. It's saying we need to protect women's bodies being used to justify anti-abortion legislation.
No, the Texas abortion law also separates women from our bodies by taking the agency and authority from the person in the body and giving it to somebody else.
A horrific anti-abortion legislation in Texas. And so because of that, because of the inherent politicization of women in general, trans or not, and trans people, women or not, or non-binary or trans men, the politicization of these two groups means that these sort of issues get drawn upon lines of political lines. Get drawn upon culture war lines. If this person was indecently exposed to, what I would have liked to have happened was she was listened to, heard by everybody, it was investigation done, person arrested, if there was indecent exposure, gone to court, and we can prove it in the court of law. It just leads...
That is literally what is happening. That you all tried to keep from happening by not doing the first part of listening to her.
This is the fact that we have to sit in a situation where we just don't know, and as a trans person, I'm just left scared in general. And I'm sure many cis women who are even pro-trans or anti-trans feel the same way. In fact, there's even questions of
Yeah. Now you're empathizing with us. Uh-huh. Cute. It's very interesting timing you've got there.
And we trust the police on this, or do the police have an anti-transgender bias, which is also entirely possible. I mean, hell, I didn't even mention the fact that the police have an internal document, according to the New York Post, that apparently says that this trans woman who has had the charges against her allegedly pretends to be a trans woman in order to gain access to women's spaces.
That's right, they did. Which seems like the sort of thing that might be, I don't know, circulated to the management of various establishments around town. But far be it for me to say, I'm not a policeman. And I've never even been to Los Angeles. But, like, this is the moment you choose to question authority. I can't say if the cops have an anti-trans bias, but it seems to me that not a whole lot of other establishment figures out there do.
That's in the report that the police said. But I don't even know. We don't even know if that is something that is from prior reports about this trans woman, that this trans woman did that in order to, in previous instances, that there's a history of her doing that she is not actually trans, or if that...
I mean, it might be up to interpretation. If it's never been admitted to, then that would be, their assumption. But if it has been admitted to, gosh, maybe somebody ought to look into that.
That's just the police using anti-transgender bias in their own reporting, internal documentation, because that's what they believe, because they believe the anti-transgender narratives. We don't know. I can't even trust the police report. And hell, that police report is being filtered through the New York Post, which itself has done many anti-transgender biased articles. So I can't even trust the reporting on the reporting that I can't.
Oh my gosh. Really? After everything that everybody was so ready to just slander that woman as a liar and move on with our lives, right? Because trans women are women and they're all beautiful, delicate flowers who would never hurt a fly, right? Mm-hmm. Right. It's not a guy with obviously some sort of, mental issue. No, that would be the simple explanation. And it's really bad, though, because this is the one point he really does have, which is that they really haven't had a lot of transparency with the investigation in this. It took them a long time to release some of this information, it seems like.
Can't trust. Even further, on top of all of this, trans women who spoke up about the situation, who expressed concern about the situation initially, are now being dogpiled on by many groups, myself included, in comments on tweets and on Twitter, that people claiming that in our initial conversations about this video that we were demonizing the woman who was discussing the video and that we were defending a sex offender because of the information that has since...
Because you were.
Now come out. When in fact, no trans women, myself included, were ever saying that it would have been A-okay for a person to go into a women's space to indecently expose themselves with the intent...
No. You didn't defend sex offending. But the person who you were defending was a sex offender. That is literally what happened.
To indecently expose themselves, trans or not. But that all we were saying was, because of our awareness of the inherent politicization of transgender bodies, that we were concerned that this video was being weaponized and utilized by anti-transgender groups.
We're weaponizing videos now? What isn't violence these days? But, this whole cover-up attempt is just helping to perpetuate the environment in which this sort of thing can continue to happen.
In order to galvanize their own anti-transgender bigotry and narratives and anti-transgender legislation. However, now, like I said, now I and other trans women like Samantha Lux, who also did a video on this on YouTube, are being accused of trying to defend a sex offender when that never was the case. And then people are using that false narrative and accusation against us that we were defending a sex offender, which we never did, to delegitimize our and other trans people's gender.
No. We're using it to discredit you as people. Because your gender does not enter into that whatsoever.
So now trans women who were speaking up about this issue because we had rightful concerns are now being accused of things that we never did, and also having to deal with transphobic harassment.
Just say it over and over again. That'll make it true.
Critique myself and address my own possible shortcomings in addressing this issue and this incident. I could have done better to at least be clear and more direct and open about the possibility that this was not a hoax, that this was something that did actually happen, and this woman did face indecent exposure.
Now, there is an understatement. I think we ought to nominate that one for Understatement of the Year.
In my initial video on the incident, I did say that, and I did say that if this was not a hoax, that if this was a person going into the bathroom to indecently expose themselves, then that person... Repetitive. That was the case, is because I know, again, how this incident had been weaponized already by anti-transgender groups by the time that I had discussed the video, and people... And so
repetitive.
Video on, because I can't give you answers here at the moment, because there are no specifics. It's not specific enough, and
boy, howdy, there sure are a lot more specifics now than there were a month or two ago, whenever it initially happened, June, I want to say. There sure are a lot more specifics now. And all of a sudden, you just don't want to give us any definitive answers or solutions. But at the time, the definitive solution was that this was just a hoax and there was nothing to see here, right? Pay no attention to the man under the water.
Hopefully, we'll get a full investigation, full facts, that we will be able to talk about this issue openly and honestly, but I don't know if that's going to happen given the politicization of events like this.
Right. The politicization of it is why you can't ever speak about it honestly, right, Jessie?
Regardless of the outcome, whether this person's convicted or not, whether it's proven this person did it or not, it's going to be galvanized either way politically for different ends either way. And you just sit here as a trans person, as a woman, regardless of my trans status, and just look at this and be frustrated.
Uh-huh. I am definitely frustrated, but I really don't think that we have the same motivations here, and doggone it, can't you just... Why do you have to enforce your, failure of categorization on the entire world? Why can't you just be certain about something? Even though other people might not understand. I'm pretty sure that's what faith is about. I don't really have a whole lot, but I've heard a bit about it.
Angry and upset that one person, whether it was a person indecently exposing themselves or one person making a hoax, whichever it was, one person can create a spiral of politicization, violence in the streets, narratives being pushed to take away the rights of marginalized groups.
Yeah. Narratives being pushed. Well, I think you would know quite a bit about that. Takes one to know one, I guess, on that one. But, it is really strange how one person can just blow up the whole situation, isn't it?
It's frustrating, scary, terrifying.
Kind of fascinating.
All those feelings on this incident. I know that I have spoken about this imperfectly. There are probably some things I could have said or done better within this video, in this discussion, but just know that I am trying to discuss this as openly as possible, trying to discuss this with as much empathy as I possibly can for everyone involved, though only able to extend so much empathy for anti-transgender groups.
You know, I actually believe all of that.
But trying to extend as much empathy as I can, while also grappling with the fact that we don't have a lot of facts, but also grappling with the fact that I feel a need to address this.
Yeah, you need to address this because now all of a sudden we have too many facts.
Right now, without all the facts, because otherwise, I don't feel like there's going to be as many voices balancing the narrative that is already being taken by anti-transgender groups that this incident is being taken for.
Yeah, you want to control the narrative because that's all you have.
And so we are left to sit in this imperfect stew of fear and frustration and anger. And that's where I'm left to stew in.
Oh, poor you. Poor you.
Moment of frustration and anger and fear and uncertainty. Because again, of one person, regardless of who it was, whether it was the person who potentially indecently exposed themselves or a person who potentially created a hoax. I have to sit with all of that, but regardless, the very fact that we don't know this information hasn't stopped this information being used against trans people. Or being used against women as a whole.
Now, you almost missed this one because it's so quick, but how is this being used against women exactly, other than to call us transphobes and whatever? Like, really, it certainly isn't being used to keep us out of women's spaces.
Trans or not. And so that's where I'm left. And I think that's where I have to end this video. I wish I had a better catharsis on it.
I don't know. The forced teaming is pretty slick there.
But I think, like the fact that we don't have a lot of information on this, I have to leave you, unfortunately, in this feeling of uncertainty, other than to say this. These are the things that I can say with conviction.
Well, first of all, I am just more certain than ever of the things that I've been pretty damn certain about for quite a while now. And secondly, I just can't wait. I can't wait to hear your points here. Come on, let's do it.
Trans people have every right to be in the bathroom that aligns with their gender identity.
No, you don't.
We have every right to be respected in our gender identity.
No, you don't.
We have every right to be respected as trans people.
No, you don't.
And as human beings.
Well, yeah. But none of the rest of that has is involved in just basic human respect. You know, that's why each sex has a facility.
Additionally, women, regardless of if they're trans or not, whether they are cis or not, women have every right to, if they have been the victims of abuse, exposure, sexual harassment, to be heard and listened to.
Only sexual assault victims should be respected? I mean, that's what that implies, but I assume that's not what he meant to say. What about if we just proactively respect them by not violating their boundaries? Crazy thought. It's just weird how, like, progressives want to make the world better and liberals act like they're enforcing a world that already is better.
Have their bodies respected. And it is not one versus the other. It is not trans bodies versus women's bodies. It's not trans women's bodies versus cis women's bodies, as alt-right groups try to frame it.
God, with the bodies again.
It is trans women and cis women to fight for our rights and respect, even amidst horrifying narratives and situations and politizations that are trying their best to push us apart.
No. We're just not that into you, honey.
That is not true.
Yeah.
No matter what happens from anti-transgender groups, women stand together, trans or not. Trans people stand together with our cis allies. And cis allies stand together with our trans allies. That is what I know with firm conviction.
You can say it all you want, and it doesn't make it true. Like, I guess the repetitiveness is kind of self-hypnosis, right?
Everything else, fortunately, I have to leave in a frustrating, terrifying, and scary space. But know that you're not alone in that space, because I'm here with you.
Yes, we know. You being in our space is the problem. Oh, but that was beautiful. Thank you, Jessie. Thank you so much for your input. He really is just a king of phrasing, isn't he? You gotta love it. You know, maybe someday on the other side of this we'll get to hang out and I can correct your grammar. It'll be a good time. Thanks so much for tuning in and staying with me this long. I am Sarah, and this has been me brazenly ranting about just the absolute logical inconsistency of this particular fellow who has like almost 90,000 followers. Like, how? Oh my gosh, it seems like sometimes he can hardly construct a coherent sentence. Well, okay, I guess I don't really have a whole lot of room to talk on that one, but mine aren't scripted. So yeah, when I'm scripted, when I'm writing, my writing is much more coherent. Like the video if you had a good time doing this with me. Subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this, and visit the Patreon. And I'm gonna go find some other stuff to bitch about. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Bye.